My sister's been stealing my stuff for months, then lying straight to my face. Mom says there's no proof, so I set up a hidden camera. What I caught on video was worse than I imagined. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who seriously considered spying on my own sister. It sounds paranoid, dramatic, even petty when you say it out loud. But when you've spent months feeling like a stranger in your own room, watching your things vanish, and hearing nothing but denials, you start wondering if maybe being dramatic is the only way to survive. My sister and I were never close, but we didn't have any real issues until she started taking my stuff. It began small, a shirt here or there, and I told myself it was normal sibling behavior. But then it snowballed. I'd come back to find my half-empty face mask set, bath bombs I'd been saving mysteriously gone, my bras missing from drawers I keep meticulously organized. And before you roll your eyes and tell me to just get over it, I need you to understand I'm not casual about my space. My room is my sanctuary. Everything is arranged by length, formality, and color. Caps are twisted on perfectly. I even keep an extra drawer of backups to prevent the panic that comes when something runs out. My therapist thinks I might have severe OCD. She's not wrong. This kind of order isn't a quirk for me, it's survival. When my shower broke and I had to start sharing my younger siblings' bathroom, things got worse. My hair is severely damaged, so I splurge on products that work $80 total for shampoo and conditioner. My brother's are $40. My mom's generic brand, $6. Guess which ones my sister decided to use. At first it was occasional mystery product loss, but then she switched to using mine and my brother's in heavy rotation. I told her to stop. She swore she wasn't touching them. The lying made me angrier than the theft. I started hiding my bottles in my vanity. That just pushed her into my room when I wasn't home. I'd find her wearing my pajama pants and my mom would shrug and tell me there's no proof. This isn't just about stuff. My sister ignores me when I cheer for her at soccer games. She mocks my clothes and personality, calls me narcissistic, tells me I only care about myself. She's not just taking things, she's chipping away at my sense of safety and self-worth. And while my brother also borrows my car and drains my gas, he at least pays me back in meals and stands up for me. With her, it's just mean. This week was the tipping point. I opened my stash drawer to find more than half my face masks gone. I stood there shaking, realizing I'd either lose my mind or do something about it. That's when the idea of a hidden camera started feeling less extreme and more like self-defense. My mom would call it an invasion of privacy, but it's my room. I wouldn't tell anyone it's there. I'd just finally have proof. Proof she can't twist, deny, or laugh off. And maybe for once, I could stop feeling like I'm screaming into the void. Nothing about my sister's behavior exists in a vacuum. It's been years in the making, a mix of small slights that I brushed off, bigger betrayals I tried to ignore, and this constant gnawing feeling that my boundaries don't mean much to the people I live with. I've always been particular about my things, even as a kid. My mom used to say I lined up my toys like soldiers and got upset when anyone touched them. Back then, it was easy to laugh off, but as I got older, it wasn't just about neatness, it was about control in a house where I didn't have much of it. Between school dance and the constant noise of 3 siblings, my room became the only space that felt like mine. Organizing it wasn't just a hobby. It was therapy before I ever went to therapy. Every hanger had to be the same style, every pen in its own holder, every lotion bottle capped exactly the same way. It might sound obsessive to you, but it's how I breathe. And because I pour so much of myself into my space, I notice instantly when something is missing or moved. That's why when my sister first started taking things, I knew right away. It began with a hoodie. I thought maybe it was in the laundry or I'd left it at the studio, but a week later I saw it on her bed crumpled, like it had been there for days. She swore she found it in the living room, but I'd never worn it downstairs. That was my first taste of the lying. Over the next few months, it was shirts, scrunchies, jewelry, little things she thought wouldn't be noticed. I confronted her more than once, but she always had a story. It was on the bathroom counter. You left it in the car. Mom said I could borrow it. Every time my mom would tell me to stop being dramatic or that sharing is what sisters do. But this isn't sharing. Sharing is when someone asks. This was theft wrapped in denial. Things escalated when our showers broke. I'd been using my own bathroom for years, keeping my expensive hair products safely tucked in a corner. But with repairs dragging on, I had no choice but to use the kids' bathroom, the one my sister uses daily. My hair is fragile from years of heat damage, so I use a $40 shampoo and $40 conditioner. It's a splurge, sure, but it's the only thing that keeps my hair from breaking off. My sister's products are cheap brands, which are fine for her hair type, but a disaster for mine. And yet I'd go in the next day and find my bottles' lighter caps, wet labels peeling from steam. I tried moving them to my room and carrying them back and forth. That's when she started going into my room while I was at school or dance practice. She didn't just take hair products anymore, she started using my bath bombs, my face masks, even my bras. The face masks especially hurt because they're part of my self-care routine, my therapist encouraged. They're not just skincare, they're small rituals that help me wind down. I buy them in bulk when I can, and I keep them in a stash drawer so I never run out. Except now that drawer was emptying faster than I could refill it. And the bras that crossed a line I didn't even know I had. Intimates are personal, and it made my skin crawl knowing she wore them without asking. Meanwhile, my relationship with my brother was its own weird contrast. He takes my car without asking, burns through the gas, and sometimes leaves crumbs in the passenger seat. But he also buys me lunch, invites me to hang out with his friends, and sticks up for me when people mess with me. With him, it's a give and take. With my sister, it's all take. She doesn't acknowledge me in public, ignores me when I cheer for her at soccer games, and tells people I'm self-centered. Once during an argument, she called me a narcissist. I tried to laugh it off, but that word stuck like a splinter. I started asking myself if maybe she was right. Maybe caring so much about my own things, my own space, did make me selfish. Those doubts dug deep, and when they got too heavy, I hurt myself just to quiet the noise in my head. My mom knows about my mental health struggles, but she still dismisses my complaints about my sister. The most insulting moment. Standing in the kitchen pointing out that my sister was wearing my pajama pants and hearing my mom say, "There's no proof she takes my things." Proof. That word burned in my mind. Because if proof is the only thing that counts, then I needed a way to get it. That's when the idea of a hidden camera went from a fleeting thought to a real plan. At first I told myself it was ridiculous. Cameras are for catching burglars, not family. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I could stop feeling like a crazy person keeping mental tallies of every missing item. I could stop the arguments that went in circles. I could finally have something concrete to show my mom. Of course I knew the risks. If my sister found the camera, she'd lose her mind. My mom might see it as an invasion of privacy even though it's my room. But I kept coming back to that word proof. Without it, I'm just the uptight older sister who can't share. With it, I'm someone who's been wronged and can prove it. The week my face mask stash disappeared was the breaking point. I opened the drawer and saw half of them gone. Not misplaced. Gone. I felt this wave of anger so strong I had to sit down. It wasn't just about the money, though replacing them would take weeks. It was about the message that nothing I owned was really mine, and no one in my house respected that. I spent that night scrolling through online listings for discreet cameras. There were ones hidden in alarm clocks, picture frames, even air purifiers. I imagined tucking one into my bookshelf angled at my vanity and dresser, the main crime scenes. I'd keep the footage on a password-protected drive, never mentioning it to anyone. It wouldn't be about embarrassing her or blasting it online. It would be about reclaiming some control. In my mind, I could already picture it, the door opening, her slipping inside, going through my things like she owned them. Maybe she'd smirk, maybe she'd talk to herself, maybe she'd try on my clothes right there. And when I had that on video, I could look my mom in the eye and say, "Here's your proof." I could already feel the mix of satisfaction and dread in that moment. Because even as I plotted it out, I knew that catching her wouldn't fix the bigger problem. It wouldn't make her respect me. It wouldn't erase the years of small cuts she's left on my self-esteem. But maybe it would be enough to make her stop, or at least make my mom finally see me as something other than a problem to manage. By the end of that week, the decision was made. I was going to do it. And even though part of me still felt guilty, another part felt lighter than I had in months. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just reacting, I was taking action. By the time I actually clicked order on the camera, my hands were shaking. Not from guilt, not exactly, but from the adrenaline that comes with finally deciding to cross a line you've been dancing around for weeks. It wasn't like buying a pair of jeans or a new set of pens, it was a commitment. It was saying out loud to myself that I was done relying on people to take my word for anything. I was going to make sure the truth couldn't be twisted or laughed off. While I waited for the package to arrive, I kept replaying every theft in my head, each one like another drop filling a bucket I'd been carrying for years. The hoodie on her bed, the hair products drained down the shower drain, the way she'd smirk when I asked about missing things as if daring me to accuse her. I thought about the time I saw her scrolling on her phone in my pajamas, the waistband loose on her hips because she's smaller than me. And the most maddening part was that she didn't even seem embarrassed. She acted like my things were community property, like I'd been selfish for ever thinking otherwise. Living in that headspace was exhausting. I felt like every day in my own house was a chess game, moving pieces to protect what I owned. I'd started hiding my most valuable items in random places, bath bombs tucked into shoeboxes, jewelry in pencil cases, shampoo bottles in drawers under my bed. It was a ridiculous amount of work, and half the time, I couldn't even find my own stuff. The worst moments were when I'd come home from school or dance and walk into my room instantly sensing it had been entered. My things would be just slightly off, pillows shifted, a book at the wrong angle. My laundry bin moved half a foot from the wall. No one else would notice, but I did. Every time my stomach would drop. It was like coming home to find someone had read your diary. Those moments were when I'd start doubting myself again. Was I being too intense? Was this what normal siblings did? My brother had once laughed when I complained about a missing shirt, telling me to relax because it's just clothes. But it wasn't just clothes. It was my boundaries being ignored over and over until they barely existed. And the more it happened, the less I trusted anyone in this house to care about me beyond what I could give them. The package arrived on a Thursday, and I swear I felt a rush of something almost like relief when I saw it on the porch. I'd gone for something simple, a camera disguised as a regular desk clock. It had decent reviews, motion detection, and a small enough size to blend into my vanity setup. I took it straight to my room, closed the door, and unboxed it like I was handling something fragile. My heart was pounding. I kept expecting my mom or sister to burst in demanding to know what I was hiding, but no one came. I read the instructions 3 times, memorizing how to insert the memory card, set the angle, and connect it to my laptop. I didn't want to have to fumble later if I needed to pull footage quickly. I placed it on my vanity angled so it caught the door dresser and part of the bed. Anyone walking in would have no idea it was recording. That first night, I barely slept. My brain kept jumping between imagining the satisfaction of catching her and the sick twist of realizing I was actively spying on my sister. I told myself over and over that this wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting myself. But the truth, there was a small vindictive part of me that wanted to see her face when she realized she'd been caught. The next day I left for school earlier than usual, making sure my room looked completely normal. Everything was in its place, nothing obviously baiting her, though I did leave my stash drawer unlocked. It wasn't even a full day before the camera caught something. I came home that afternoon, closed my door, and checked the footage. There she was, walking into my room like she owned it, not even glancing around to see if anyone was watching. She went straight for my vanity, opened the stash drawer, and pulled out 2 face masks. Then she wandered over to my dresser, opened my jewelry box, and tried on a necklace. She even looked at herself in the mirror, smiling. That smile burned into me. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't guilty. She was pleased. Like she was trying on my life piece by piece. Watching it felt surreal. It wasn't that I didn't know she was doing it. I'd known for months. But seeing it crystal clear turned all my suspicion into something undeniable. I sat there for a long time, staring at the paused frame of her holding my necklace, wondering what to do next. The urge to march into her room and throw the proof in her face was almost overwhelming. But then I thought about my mom. I thought about her saying there's no proof and how I could now shove that excuse back at her. I also thought about what would happen after. Would my mom punish her? Would my sister hate me even more? Would it make our already icy relationship completely unbearable? Over the next few days, I kept the camera running. The footage piled up, her borrowing makeup brushes and not putting them back, taking my hair products into the bathroom, digging through my closet for clothes. One day, she even sat on my bed scrolling through my phone charger like she was looking for something else to take. Every new clip was like a fresh confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that my boundaries weren't imaginary. But it also made me feel hollow. The proof was satisfying, yes, but it also hurt in a way I hadn't expected. It's one thing to suspect someone you live with doesn't respect you, it's another to watch them prove it over and over without a shred of hesitation. By the fourth day, I started noticing a change in myself. I was hyper-aware of every interaction with her, looking for signs she might know I was watching. I found myself snapping at her more, even over small things. Once, she asked if I'd seen her hoodie, and I almost said, "Why don't you check my room?" but bit my tongue. The tension was building, and I knew I couldn't keep the footage to myself forever. The choice was between going to my mom now before my anger boiled over, or holding on to it until I found the perfect moment to strike. My therapist would probably tell me to go the diplomatic route, to use the evidence as a way to start a calm, respectful conversation. But I wasn't in a calm or respectful place. I was angry, and underneath that, I was tired. Tired of being dismissed, tired of defending myself, tired of feeling like I was the one overreacting. One night I watched a clip where she came into my room wearing my hoodie, sat on my bed, and texted someone for 15 minutes before leaving. No theft that time, just being there, in my space. That one got to me more than all the others, because it wasn't about the stuff in that moment, it was about the fact that my room wasn't mine anymore. She didn't see it as off limits. It was just another part of the house she could occupy whenever she wanted. That was when I knew the camera wasn't going to be enough. Even if she stopped taking things, the damage was done. I didn't feel safe in my own space, and no amount of proof could give me that back. The question now was whether confronting her would make things better or blow everything up completely. The answer, I suspected, was both. The night I decided to confront her, I didn't plan it. There was no big strategy or carefully chosen timing. It happened because I couldn't stomach one more clip, one more moment of her walking through my door like it was a revolving one. I'd just gotten home from a long-day school dance, then tutoring, and all I wanted was to collapse in bed. But when I opened my laptop to check the footage there, she was, again barely an hour earlier, wearing my hoodie and sitting cross-legged on my bed, scrolling on her phone. She didn't take anything this time, but it didn't matter. Watching her lean back against my pillows and laugh at whatever was on her screen made my stomach twist. It was the same feeling you get when you realize someone's been reading your diary, not just invading your privacy, but doing it so casually it feels like they've never considered it wrong. That was the breaking point. I grabbed my laptop, walked down the hall, and knocked on her door. She opened it halfway, eyes narrowing like she was already bracing for an argument. I didn't say anything at first. I just turned the screen toward her and hit play. She froze, her face draining of color. For a moment I thought she might laugh it off, but she didn't. She just stared, then finally muttered, "You're creepy." That word stung more than I wanted to admit. Creepy. As if setting up a camera in my own room to protect my things was the violation here, not the fact that she'd been walking in and out of my space for months, taking whatever she wanted. "This is proof," I told her, my voice shaking. "Proof you've been lying to me and to Mom." She crossed her arms and tried to act unbothered, but her eyes kept darting to the screen. "You're pathetic," she said. "It's just stuff." I could feel my chest tightening. It wasn't just stuff, and she knew it. This was about trust, respect, the idea that my boundaries meant anything in this family. But before I could say that, she slammed her door in my face. I stood there in the hallway, laptop still open, and for a second, I felt like I'd just made everything worse. The confrontation didn't give me the rush of victory I'd imagined. It left me feeling heavy, like I'd just dropped a weight I'd been carrying, only to find another one in its place. I thought about going straight to my mom, but I knew how that conversation would go. She'd see the footage, maybe scold my sister, and then shift the focus to me. She'd say the camera was an invasion of privacy, that I should have come to her first, as if I hadn't been coming to her for months. So instead, I closed my laptop and went back to my room. The next few days were tense in ways I hadn't expected. My sister stopped talking to me entirely. She'd walk past me without making eye contact, slam her door whenever I was in the hallway, and mutter to herself when she thought I couldn't hear. My mom picked up on the distance but didn't ask questions, which almost made it worse. It was like the silent agreement in our house was that conflict should be ignored until it fades, or until someone explodes. I didn't remove the camera. Part of me still needed it there like a safety net. But I stopped checking it every day. It wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about the message that I wasn't leaving my door unguarded. I wish I could say the footage stopped completely after that night, but it didn't. A week later, I saw her come in while I was at dance and grab a hairbrush off my vanity. No face masks, no jewelry, just the brush. It was almost worse that she kept doing it even after knowing I had proof. It told me she didn't care if I caught her. She didn't respect the boundary even when she knew there'd be consequences. That's when the reality set in. The camera wasn't going to change her. It might change how I reacted, but it wouldn't make her see me differently. I'd been hoping for some kind of turning point, a moment where she'd realize she'd crossed too many lines and decide to stop. But if the footage, the confrontation, and the Cold War between us didn't do it, nothing would. The real turning point wasn't about her, it was about me. I stopped expecting her to respect my space and started focusing on how I could protect it without relying on her to change. I bought a better lock for my door, one she couldn't pick or force open without it being obvious. I started keeping my most important items in a locked box under my bed, the key on a chain around my neck. I even rearranged my vanity so that the most tempting items were hidden in drawers instead of on display. It felt a little like building a fortress, but at least it was my fortress. And yet, even as I made my space more secure, I couldn't shake the sadness. I'd always imagined that one day when we were older, my sister and I might actually get along. That maybe we'd look back on our teenage fights and laugh. But watching her on that footage, seeing how little my boundaries meant to her, made me realize that future might never exist. We weren't just in different chapters, we were reading entirely different books. The confrontation had been the boiling point, but the real change was internal. I no longer believed my mom would step in, or that my sister would ever acknowledge what she'd done. I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped hoping for some big moment of clarity where everyone would finally understand my side. Instead, I started thinking about how much longer I had until I could leave. College was less than a year away, and the thought of having a dorm room, a space that was mine alone, became the thing I clung to on bad days. The night I realized that was the real turning point, I sat on my bed looking around my room. It was still mine in the sense that my name was on the door, but it didn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It felt like a space I was defending until I could escape it entirely. And maybe that was the saddest part of all, that my own home had turned into a place where my guard was always up even when I was supposed to feel safe. In the weeks that followed, the dust never really settled. It just changed shape. My sister and I existed in a quiet standoff, passing each other in the hall like strangers who'd once been forced to share a life. She stopped taking the obvious things, but the trust was gone, and I knew better than to think that meant she'd stopped entirely. The camera stayed in place, a silent witness I didn't always check anymore, but whose presence was a comfort. It wasn't about catching her now, it was about knowing I wasn't completely defenseless. My mom never found out, at least not from me. Part of me still wanted to shove the footage in her face to prove once and for all that I'd been telling the truth. But another part knew it would just lead to a new fight, one where I'd end up being the villain for crossing privacy boundaries. In the end, I decided I didn't need her validation anymore. Proof is only satisfying when the person you're showing it to actually cares. And my mom had made it clear in 100 small ways that she didn't. The real victory wasn't in exposing my sister, it was in building my own walls higher, in refusing to let her get to me the way she used to. I found myself counting down the months until I could leave. Every calendar page I turned was a step closer to a dorm room with a lock. Only I had the key for a bathroom where my products stayed exactly where I left them. A bed no one else sat on without my permission. That thought became my anchor. Sometimes I'd catch my sister glancing at me like she wanted to say something, but the words never came. Maybe she was angry, maybe she felt guilty, maybe she didn't care at all. I stopped trying to figure it out. I'd wasted enough energy trying to understand someone who had no interest in understanding me. One night, I sat at my desk looking at the clock camera, and it hit me that this was probably the last big battle I'd have to fight here. Not because she'd suddenly change, but because soon it wouldn't matter. This house, with all its invasions and unspoken rules, wouldn't be mine to defend anymore. And maybe that's the bittersweet part, that leaving won't be a victory march, just a quiet slipping away from a place that stopped feeling like home a long time ago. When I finally do leave, I'll take my things with me. But more importantly, I'll take the lesson that my boundaries are mine to enforce, even if it means being called dramatic, selfish, or creepy. If protecting myself makes me those things in someone else's eyes, I can live with that. What I can't live with is letting people walk through my life, my space, and my trust without consequence ever again.